Welcome to the Urban Cowgirl Show, training our horses and miniature cows in ranch versatility. Penning Rusty and Suzie, our bull and heifer. Roping Rusty with Morgan horse, Semi. Training Eve to drive cart. Training Eve to work over her haunches with a motor cow simulator. Training Eve to lay down. Training Eve to harness, pull a log. Training Semi to harness, pull a log on turf. Liberty jumping to music with our horses who are our partners. Training Eve on a cow roping simulator. Training on our driveway, which is covered by sand, so we have a straight track. Stepping over poles, jumping over crossbar jumps. Training in our trail obstacles course. Sadie doing obstacles without rein control. Training miniature zebu bull Rusty to pull an implement.
Today we are going to desensitize a Shadrach Triton Semi, my 6-year-old Morgan mare, to cart driving tack. Now Semi has done log pulling. Cart driving is very similar, but in some respects a little bit trickier, a little bit more potentially dangerous. So we're going to do this in very small steps. And when the camera first turned on, you saw a different screen. You saw this little DVD player with a DVD in it. On the screen is Demi, double-track Demi Moore, Semi's mother, being tacked for cart driving, probably about 2.5 years ago. But we use our training videos not only to help other people who want to do what we do by putting them up on the internet and broadcasting them on community television, but to help ourselves remember how to do things. So we brought that DVD out. Rosie, who's helping me today and who has also harnessed Sadie, my now 3-year-old filly, about 6 months ago we harnessed her, is harnessing Semi. Now my horses are ranch versatile, and we do one thing or another and many things with all of them. But I realized recently that, in fact, although Semi has done log pulling and many, many other ranch versatile activities, I could find no video of her actually driving a cart. So I said to Rosie, who helped me with Sadie a while back, we're going to do this with Semi. And we're going to do it slowly. We're going to do it as if she'd never even log pulled. But we're going to have certain confidences from our experience with her that, in fact, she is going to quickly learn how to accept the harness tack for driving and drive a cart. Okay. Now you can see that Rosie is very quietly putting the britchin on Semi. Britchin is something that goes over the hips that most horses are not used to at all. Also most cows. We've also trained Rusty and Suzie to wear britchin, but every time we do it again, we have to re-desensitize them to it. So far, you're seeing this unrehearsed. So far, yes, Semi's okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of longer back than Sadie. I'm going to have to...
Absolutely, we have to adjust. Okay, as I mentioned, this is unrehearsed, so you're going to see our very small step process to hopefully taking a huge step in the near future, and that is kart driving with Semi. I call it huge because I have quite a bit of experience driving both horses and cows, and I've seen a lot of horrible wrecks. Fortunately, not with my own horses or cows, but I'm very, very careful because of the wrecks I've seen with quite well-trained horses. Don't ever forget, please, whoever's watching these shows, that horses and cows are prey animals. And if you lose their focus, if you lose their respect, if you lose their attention, and they become reactive, or as it's said in the natural horsemanship world, right brain, you very well may find yourself in an unsafe situation. So that is why we often do things in very small steps, almost to the point of possibly being boring, but we do it for the sake of safety. Now Rosie is adjusting. This is a leather britchin, in contrast to biothane, which my britchin for my cows is biothane. It is kept in a very dry, secure environment, so it shouldn't be dirty or brittle, because we always clean our tack before we put it away. And we keep the leather oiled to keep it from getting brittle when it seems like it needs oiling. So here we go again. Semi is getting her britchin over her hips. Then you see she's going to have her crooper put under her tail. And we're going to show you how that goes. Okay, now Rosie's doing quite well. I have my DVD player here in my hand, this portable DVD player. Easy to get them. I'm Sonia Sokolow. Welcome to Midmore. And you probably don't hear the soundtrack, but this is a 2006 DVD about how we did this with Demi, as I mentioned earlier.
And to have fun with my horses. In order to use my entire 5 acres, I had to make sure that I didn't
now watch Rosie as we get closer and closer to the point where we're going to put the bridle on and connect everything up and do some ground driving. Watch Rosie.
Girl.
And I'm here to point to things as we proceed to tack up Semi to give you some vocab, assuming I can remember all the names. And if I can't, I'm going to turn this DVD back on, which I actually just turned the sound off. I'm going to come closer to the camera so you can see what we did with Eve way back then in 2006 is, because we have also trained Eve to drive cart, is we did a lot of ground driving with her in the arena. And we put some PVCs up along the sides of her body to get her used to, desensitized to what ultimately would be the cart shafts. We did this with Suzie, my miniature zebu heifer, as well. Now we're going to do it with Semi. We're going to show you in however many shows it takes to do it in small steps, and successfully and safely. So I'm going to put this DVD player now down with the sound off. I'm going to keep looking back at the show to remind myself what we did back there in 2006. And as Rosie tacks up, I'm going to be telling you what she's tacking up with. This, of course, is a surcingle. Rosie's looking for some other parts, and she'll be here soon. And if she can't find them, I'm going to go in and find them. We keep all of our tack equipment, both for the cows and for the horses, for driving and for pulling in one shed, a nice dry shed with many, many hooks. And so Rosie is coming back out. Go ahead, Rosie, keep doing what you think is logical, and I'm going to keep explaining what I remember as vocab. Do you have a question?
No, I think this is good. I can think of anything
okay.
to do before we put on the bridle.
Okay. All right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do one more thing while you do what you're doing, and speak out loud so that we know what you're thinking.
Okay.
I'm going to get some rafter hooks to hang on the fence, which is always helpful for a process like this, so you can hang each individual piece up on the fence
Okay.
and grab them.
Sure.
So why don't you say what you're doing?
Okay, what I was thinking about now is putting the driving bridle here. It's really complicated, there's a lot of straps. Putting this on, not putting the driving lines on yet, we'll leave that for a minute, but putting the bridle on first, and then just leading her around a little so she can feel this tack on her, feel, you know, how it is on her body as she moves before we ground drive her.
Okay, and I found a couple of rafter hooks that didn't have anything on them. Here's one. You can get them at a local hardware store. Got a lot of room for hanging some flat pieces of straps or tacks. And here's one I got from a garden supply. These are used, I think, to hang up flower pots, but they're great also for tack. So I'm putting them over here on the nearby fence, and Rosie's going to use them so that she can grab, when necessary, individual pieces of tack. Semi, so far, I keep looking at her body language, is doing just fine. Looks like, I didn't even watch it, but it looks like Semi was just fine on Rosie. I'm going to touch Semi so she knows I'm here. There you go. Rosie had no problem, it looks like, getting the grouper under the tail. And then we like to pull the tail out from under the britchin. Now the britchin piece I had made locally, because when I bought this harness many, many years ago, there was no britchin. You really don't need to have britchin on a driving harness if you're only going to be doing flat work, but we're ranch here. Sometimes it's not flat work, so I wanted to have leather britchin to go with my patent leather harness, and I had it made locally. And if you would like to know who made it, I will highly recommend him, Jerry Dowdy. He lives in Scotts Valley area, and he will tell you how to measure things and tell you what materials he has, and he will produce your product for you. So you might be seeing Jerry come down here very soon with his ponies and his pony cart and his very beautiful show harness to do a show with me here. I first saw him at Santa Cruz Horseman Association, about a month ago, working with his ponies, and I said, how about coming to Minmore Farms and let me do a show for you and with you? And he said he would enjoy that. Okay, so.
I'm going to adjust
Okay.
a little, I think it's a little tight.
Okay, let's show the camera.
Oh.
We've got a very, very nice but rather complicated bridle with blinders and noseband. Again, we need to adjust it because we had it on a different horse. We had it on Sadie, who was only about 2.5 when we did this with her, and she is built a little differently. Although all my Morgans are short-backed and old style, they still have their individual characteristics. So Rosie's going to be adjusting today, and if that's all we get done today is tacking up, that's fine. We're showing you every little step because maybe that's what you're going to have to do the first time or two, and you might find when you do it that your horse doesn't stand quite as nicely as Semi has been standing today, because these are some very strange feelings to the horse. And so what do you have to do? The word is, nowadays, desensitize. Take away the stress feelings that are associated with certain objects, certain things that might be perceived as a prey, certain objects that might be causing pressure that is uncomfortable. So look at Sam. So far, so good. But we haven't brought all the straps down. We've got all the straps tied up in such a way that even if she were to start to get real stressed now, nothing would fall in between her legs. Can be very, very dangerous if these straps fall down and the horse gets tied up in them. I'm going to tell you a story while Rosie is putting the bridle on, which is a little bit more complicated than putting a riding bridle on because of the blinders and because of one more piece, which is called the overcheck, and I'll show it to you shortly. I'm going to tell you a story about a very, very experienced horse in Woodland who was out with his experienced owner driving cart in a cow pasture, and apparently a bobcat appeared. It may have been a coyote, I'm not sure. but it was perceived as a prey animal, as a predator to the Morgan, who's very similar in nature to Semi. It was perceived as a predator, and the horse bolted. And unfortunately, the reins fell out of the driver's hand, and the cart tipped over. And the horse continued to run for a ways, and all of the straps got tied up around the horse's legs. And finally the horse said, I guess we're anthropomorphizing here, said, I better stop because this isn't working. He wasn't getting to run away like he wanted. And fortunately the owner was not so hurt that she couldn't get up and loosen the straps from the horse's legs, and then he was fine. He joined up with her. But this is a true story. It happened just this year, and I'm letting you know so that you're going to be aware of how safe you're going to want to proceed if you try to do this same process with your horse. And always keep in mind that this kind of accident can happen at any time. You may want to take that off. Yeah, put it. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. Again, we have extra straps, extra pieces of hardware to lengthen things and to shorten things. And Semi is not a real long-necked horse, so we're taking one piece of hardware off. And then we're going to put it around a very nice brass hook that is part of my patent leather surcingle. There you go. And can you put that on the other side of her head just so that the camera can see it? That is the overcheck. So what is the overcheck? Well, it keeps the horse from putting her head down. And you want to make it loose. As you can see, it's very loose on the side of her neck. We'll show you better when we take Semi off the lead line, which is presently tied with a slip knot in case we get in trouble. It's very loose, but what it's designed to do is to keep the horse from reaching down. You don't want them to reach down for anything when they're driving a cart. Okay, now it looks like Rosie is adjusting the neck strap and the nose band.
All the cheek straps.
Yeah.
Just making sure it all fits.
Okay, and then let me show you what I use whenever I can. Very carefully, we're doing two things at once here, so I'm going to do things very slowly. Don't surprise Semi. Whenever I can, I use quick releases. And if my cameraman can zoom in on this particular piece of hardware, which individually is about $4 or $5, but worth its weight in gold, because what it does, if you're in a pinch, if you know how to release it, what part of it, which right now is this sleeve, then you can very easily release this piece of hardware so that you can loosen up whatever might be in the wrong place. Now, other nice pieces of hardware to use are carabiners, but sometimes if you're in a pinch, it's not so easy to pinch this carabiner open to get it off. Not as easy as it is to pull the sleeve, and there's an arrow on it so that you know, even in an emergency, pull the sleeve down of a quick release so that you can get it off. So especially with the log pull, I use a lot of quick releases, back to the single tree, back to the chains that are pulling the log, and also with cart driving. Wherever I can, I use quick releases. Now these straps, you will see, not today, but another day, you will see, they're wrapped up in a knot so that they stay out of their way. We'll go back to the cart when we bring the cart out, maybe next lesson if things go well today. But for now, with a carabiner, I have them hooked up here to this ring on the top of the surcingle. These straps, which are part of the britchin, I have extra hardware to make them longer, but I probably won't need that extra hardware when we actually hook to the cart. I'm just going to take it off, put it in my pocket, have it available for, let's say we hitch up another horse that is a little bit longer back. This britchin strap is going to go to the cart. It's going to be a way to further brake, have an extra brake on the cart. The first brake is the thimbles. The second brake, just in case the thimbles fall off or you're in trouble, is going to be the britchin, or if we choose to connect the britchin to the front of the surcingle, we will have a strap from the surcingle to the extra brake that we have installed on my cart shafts. And you will hear more about this and see more about it when we actually hitch, because I always think in terms of how to stop the vehicle if there's a runaway and how to get the straps off in an emergency. And I will continue to explain that to you and show that to you as we proceed. Okay, what I think is next, that's probably everything that I've told you just now is probably rather overwhelming. So what I think is a real good next step is, I'm going to hang this all back up again so that it's out of the way. This, by the way, is a strap that holds the shafts up when the shafts are brought to the sides of the horse. They're called the shaft holders. They all just hang here out of the way. Now, Sammy is doing just fine. But you know, when we start moving, she might get kind of upset just because she's going to feel certain pressures that she hasn't felt in quite a while, including this breast collar. We could have used my neck collar for driving, which we do use for log pulling, and Semi's quite used to it. But it's rather large and cumbersome, and for the kind of driving I'm going to be showing you, this breast collar is just fine, and it is part of my harness. It is leather and patent leather and very nicely maintained. So we're using the breast collar, which we also used with Demi 2.5 years ago when we hitched her. Okay, now can you take the slip knot out of the lead line? We do have a rope halter on under the bridle, the harness bridle, and let's just walk her around, and my cameraman will follow us. I am going along too in case there's problems, in case she starts to scurry or to bolt, but watch her body language. So far I see no problem, including the britchin on her hips. A bird just flew over that she saw in spite of her blinders. Okay, can you turn around and come back? And let's do some weaving back and forth, some figure eights while I explain what the blinders are all about. It's rather traditional to drive a horse with blinders, but there are some competing theories about blinders. Some people don't like to use them. Some people like a horse to be able to see what's on their side of the body. And as you know from prior discussions, horses have really good peripheral vision. But way back in the days of cart driving, I believe that people were more interested in having the horse get them to where they're going. They used the carts all the time. They weren't quite as concerned about any kind of reaction to the perceived predators, so they used these blinders. And these are really nice patent leather blinders. Some horses won't even go with a blinder. They won't even walk up and down the driveway like Semi just did. I use blinders because there's no reason for me not to. But if I were having a lot of trouble with a horse because the blinders were so unusual and they really objected to them, I would proceed to train for harness without the blinders. However, what you have to realize then is that if something happens on the side of the body, not necessarily auditory, but visual, they will see it. And you have to really trust your horse, and your horse has to be really focused on you. Otherwise, they may react as if it were a predator. And I think this is very good. So I am going to stand here for a minute. I'm going to get our drive lines. because the next step is to see if we can drive her the same way we just asked her to walk around with a lead line. And then the next step after that is to put some simulated shafts into the shaft holders and see if we can lead her and drive her with the feeling of shafts on the sides of her body. So, Rosie, you're going to continue to lead, and I am going to go in the back of her with these very long drive lines and ask her with my very light touch to G and Ha. G being right and Ha being left. And we'll see how she behaves. We may, at some point, today or another day, actually take the lead line off and do this only with the drive lines. So I'm putting this drive line into this ring. It has some other things in it right now, but there's room for the drive line. And then, one more thing. The drive line is going to go through this martingale, which right now is just wrapped up in a little knot. Are you getting this,
Yeah.
Ed? Okay. Put it through the martingale. I hope it'll fit. Okay. No. Okay, what you need to do is just take take the hardware off. We have an extra easy to latch piece of hardware which has a wide end, and it is having trouble getting through the martingale rig. So we just took it off temporarily until we get through the martingale rings and then put it back on. You see, this kind of pinch clasp is much harder to deal with. You really need strong fingers. As a matter of fact, I don't have strong fingers.
Neither do I.
Are you having trouble too?
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to put it through this way again.
You're going to change the direction that you're going?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
went through it from the end.
Okay. All right, yes. Now that's another way to do it. Those, I can see why I put those clasps on a long time ago. You can just think ahead and go through the drive line, the martingale rings, and then connect to the bridle with these easy to connect.
To be continued in part 2, which will show ground driving as well as shaft desensitization. Shadrach Stables at Midmore Farms. Sadie and Eve. Semi. Rusty and Suzie. www.thesocolos.com